Talent can be found just about anywhere. Even emergency broadcast system checks display it. I mean, not everyone can write that eloquently. But pivoting over to films, more specifically short films, sometimes the idea and the talent behind it is so great even Hollywood can't ignore it. A lot of them get picked up and hopefully are made into full-fledged movies. This is the dream for a lot of people, and that dream has come true for a lucky few son-of-a-guns. So let's take a look at a few examples of shorts that were either adapted or padded out into feature-length films. Coming in first is Lights Out. Swedish director David F. Sandberg made the short film Lights Out with his wife for an online horror competition. After going viral, Hollywood came knocking and were interested in adapting the short into a feature. After getting James Wan on board to produce and Sandberg coming to the US to direct, the project gained momentum. The funny thing is, this was Sandberg's first feature and he didn't know much about Hollywood-style filmmaking as he himself never went to film school.
When I was interviewing people for various positions, I was basically just interviewing them, asking them what their job was. Like, what does the script supervisor actually do? And they had to sort of tell me, oh, this is how it works. Or like a first AD, okay, so what do you do? And not like, so it was just a crash course in sort of how a film set works.
Nevertheless, the film did indeed come out in 2016, making nearly $150 million on a mere $4.9 million budget. Sandberg himself has had a solid career since then, directing Annabelle Creations, Shazam, and the upcoming Shazam 2. And just think, once upon a time he was a lowly YouTuber. But staying in the realm of James Wan and horror, my favorite combination of things, there's a more famous example of this. Saw. Yes, the movie you tried sneakily watching on cable without your parents knowing, that one. Saw was a pretty big deal when it came out, as word of mouth built it up to be this over-the-top torture porn movie with a killer puppet. But when people actually watch the movie, not much torture stuff happens, and is more just a well-written suspense film. No, they saved the mindless gore for the sequels. It brought in a hefty sum of over $100 million based on a $1.2 million budget. They were able to keep the budget this low by having large chunks of the story take place in the same locations. The film was written by and co-starred Leigh Whannell and was directed by Wan, who were both complete unknowns at the time. Trying to think of a good idea for a film, they came up with centering a story around two people trapped in a room, which is the cheapest script they could think to shoot. On top of the genre being horror, which is traditionally much cheaper and easier to turn a profit on than most genres. After not being able to secure funding for the script on their own, the two made a 7-minute short adapting a scene for the movie, burned it onto a DVD, and sent it out along with a script. This was enough to turn some heads in Hollywood and get them the budget they needed, launching a phenomenon which dominated the era and is now pittering along. A similar instance happened with the movie Whiplash. Damien Chazelle had nothing more than a student feature under his belt, so when he tried selling the script for Whiplash, he received a hearty helping of nope. What he did was take a titular scene from the script, adapted it into a short, and sold it as just that, even casting actors who would end up in the actual film, most notably J.K. Simmons. When the short went on to win some awards at Sundance, the pieces fell into place thereafter, being distributed by Sony Picture Classics and chiefly being financed by... Hey wait, you might be asking. Isn't there a difference between a movie based on a short film and adapting part of a script for proof of concept? Well, sorta. While that technically isn't a movie being based on a short and is sort of the opposite, it still is basing the movie off what the short established. It is able to define many key aspects of the film, including visual style and tone. And besides, when creating a short film off of one scene, you aren't exactly selling it as one scene from a larger story, you're selling it as its own short film which stands completely on its own. Imagine if you're watching one scene from Rocky and you're just like, I feel whole. But alright, you want to hear more about movies completely based on short films from the ground up. Fine. Let's start with an underground film made by an underground filmmaker. That's right, George Lucas. In 1967, while attending college at USC, he created a short film called Electronic Labyrinth, THX 1138 4EB. Rolls right off the tongue. The film was a hit in the student festival circuit, and when teaming up with his friend Francis Ford Coppola after graduation, they were able to get Warner Brothers to sign off on making a few movies with the two under Francis's company, American Zoetrope. The first movie of the bunch was an adaptation of Lucas's short. The title was shortened just to THX 1138 and was able to lock in a solid cast with Robert Duvall and Donald Pleasance. And lucky enough for Lucas, his film festival luck wasn't wearing off soon. I can't say it with a straight face. Yeah, the movie didn't perform well at the box office, and Warner Brothers weren't really happy with the final project to begin with, seeing it as just too out there and abstract. This caused them to break their contract with Coppola and cut the two loose to go wreak havoc in some other part of Hollywood. A sound decision, I must say. Now that's adapting from your own work. What about adapting from someone else's? See, short films typically have this air of ulterior motive. Sure, they're plenty entertaining on their own, but 99% of the time, the people making them are just trying to catapult their careers by strutting their stuff with a short. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with this. Proof of concept is incredibly important. However, it's not too often when you find a short by someone who's just trying to make shorts. I mean, it makes sense. There isn't too much money to be made in short filmmaking, but what if we take a step outside the capitalist paradise of America and over to the wonderful land of France? In 1962, French filmmaker Chris Marker created the short La Jetée, which was more so a narrative being told through still images and voiceovers. And then in 1995, it served as the heavy inspiration for the movie 12 Monkeys. While it's not an exact adaptation, as the core stories of the two are fairly unlike each other, it still represents how you can adapt an idea way beyond what it was originally conveying into something completely different. Maybe the story of the original wasn't able to be told in the way they wanted to, so they decided to improve upon it, who knows. But what I do know is that there are ideas that are essentially the same in both short and feature. I say ideas and not specifically story, more on that in a second. The last one I wanted to bring attention to is not exactly the same narratively, but rather in tone. And no movie is more of a tone poem than Napoleon Dynamite. In 2002, Jared Hess made the short film Palooka. Shot over a weekend on about a $500 budget, the short depicts Napoleon, here called Seth, partaking in all the wacky antics we expect from his character. While a couple of scenes and instances are used in the final film,
What are you gonna do today, Seth?
Whatever I feel like I want to do. Gosh.
What are you gonna do today, Napoleon?
Whatever I feel like I want to do. Gosh.
overall it's telling a different story, which if these extra scenes were adapted into the movie, they would have fit seamlessly. And keeping with the spirit of the short, the film had a low budget, here about $400,000, but went on to gross well over $46 million, and ushered in a new age of movies, thinking the Midwest was the quirkiest place on earth. Such a fascinating idea, a movie being adapted from a short. And as we've seen, not all of these are the most conventional shorts out there, being made into more linear and conventional movies. You can adapt a movie from pretty much any length project. A 5-minute short film, a 30-minute story told through pictures. Like hell, will we ever get to the day where a movie is adapted from a commercial? Like me personally, I think the Noid is waited long enough.